So I want to try to tie all these things together.
Please.
So I remember listening to Adolf Reed. It might have been on your show, or elsewhere, where and talk about just a mind-blowing guy to listen to, and his son, of course, Toure, is amazing as well. But I came to really become a leftist rather than just a liberal by leaving behind New Atheism. I was really tied up in New Atheism, and that's how I discovered Michael, was literally just putting Sam Harris criticism into YouTube and finding Michael, and then just being like, oh my God, like all the bullshit I knew was there is now explained so concisely.
Neanderthal DNA anymore.
Yeah, you can't even talk about Neanderthal DNA anymore. But just doing it with humor, being disarming in that way, it was tremendously good for me. And doing impressions, I love impressions, so that was like that just clicked in with me. But so I came from that world. So I'm still, of course, you never stop being an atheist, I guess, unless you have one of those weird deathbed conversions, right? But so when I heard Adolf Reed say, the standard liberal narrative of like slavery, for example, is not was an outcome of capitalism, that race itself is an invention of capitalists to enforce their completely free labor force, but rather calling it the original sin of the United States. He said, now we're in religious territory. And this is what reminds me of cancel culture. There is a type of a scarlet lettering thing, intra-left cancel culture. Like there's a part of it, it's just part of the greater culture wars. You know what I mean? Like the right just had this law student, right? This Stanford law student who was waiting on, was it Stanford? He's waiting on his degree, and the Federalist Society was trying to quash him. Before that, the AP journalist who supported Palestinian human rights. You know what I mean? Like the right knows how to weaponize cancel culture against the left. You go back to McCarthy,
so spineless. By the way, is like it was like 3 days after the IDF bombed AP's headquarters.
Totally spineless. The AP, and as a journalist, I'm just like, wow, like that's the best you can do, AP, like pathetic, but so Adolf Reed characterizes it in that way, and that just makes me go, wow. So I can see there's almost a religious idealism and kind of fervor around this type of stuff. And then this gets me to the book you're working on now, which is about Christopher Hitchens, which, if you're a New Atheist fan, you were watching the Hitch slap videos and you're watching him destroy people and all, and a lot of not just arguments with religious people, but you go pre-Iraq and pre-Bush. He's an open, avowed Marxist, probably the most prominent, most platformed Marxist in American society, doing it with his panache and all his style and stuff. And, but that often gets forgotten because it's just like, well, he supported Iraq and he had that weird turn at the end of his life. And a lot of his atheism, though not all of it, was tied to a kind of a rank Islamophobia, right? So I feel like you choosing to embrace him in this way with this book, if you want to talk about the book a little bit, is kind of a way of, saying like, let's shake off a bit of this moralism and this kind of trying to boil everybody down, squeeze them into a diamond of their worst take they ever had, and neglect everything else, right?
Yeah, and it's kind of funny too, the way that you tie those in, because there are a couple of places that I've in doing like research for this book where I found Hitchens drop positive mentions of Adolf Reed.
Cool.
So he was definitely on his radar, and a writer that he liked. But yeah, I mean, I think. Well, I guess two quick points about your lead-in before getting into Hitch.
Sure.
One of them is, so I think the Reed point. I think I know what you're talking about. I think that might have been Toure, but anyway, I think they're both in the discussion, so I might be getting my wires crossed anyway.
Yeah.
But they have, but the point really, I think, just to put a little bow on it about like calling racism original sin, is like, okay, as um, as the Reeds would know, as not very good Catholics, but
Yep.
but people who were brought up in the church, the whole thing about original sin is that it's permanent. Like that, like you don't get to the point where the next generation you don't have any original sin anymore. Like the like original sin is something that you get forgiven for on an individual basis, but
no absolution from that, and you're stained with it from birth. So there's nothing you can do. There's nothing you could do to ever.
Exactly. So it's like if you're saying racism is America's original sin, you're saying we will never get rid of it. That we'll have it forever until the end of time. Which, man, let's maybe not start from that assumption. But go back to Against the Web. Let's not naturalize or mythologize. Let's historicize. Say this is like a thing that arose under specific historical circumstances and can be undone under other historical circumstances. But yeah, and I also think I often think of Adolf Fried's line about actually one of the TMBS interviews where he was talking about left moralism, and he said this is just too Protestant a version of politics for me. It seems to be all about who's going to heaven and who's going to hell.
I like that one a lot.
Yeah, went on to say that it's important that you raise your kids either Catholic or Jewish, or else there's a danger that they'll actually be religious. But yeah, I think Hitchens, he definitely. I mean, I don't want to softball this part. Like his worst takes were very, very, very bad takes. Disastrously, indefensibly bad. But also, but I think he's a really interesting figure. It's obviously one of the reasons I wanted to write about him, and also, I think that I think that there's several decades, or not several, but there's a good 30 years of between the first book that was ever published with Christopher Hitchens' name on the cover, which was in 1971. It was a book of Marx and Engels' essays about the Paris Commune that he wrote the introduction to. Nobody knows that it's it's a pretty deep cut, but that was the first one. If you don't, if you're watching this and you want to read that and you don't have an academic library, you can do interlibrary loan, which is what you'll have to do to get a hold of it. I can DM me, and I'm happy to send people the PDF. But I don't think the Hitchens family is going to watch this and get mad at me for that. But in between then and 2001, right? That's 30 years of writing where he says a lot of, I think in the vast majority of cases, very good stuff that's worth sort of introducing to a new generation, and even in the last 10 years, I think that it's obviously complicated, and there's some very, very bad turns there in some ways, although I think it's also exaggerated sometimes, because I think that because of everything we've been talking about, that people want so badly to categorize everybody cleanly into the good basket or the bad basket, that okay, what's a story that I can tell myself about Christopher Hitchens that will be reassuring to me. And if you're a anti-war leftist like I am, then well, I don't know, he was just a sellout, or he was just like a neo-Kantian or something. Those are very simple, reassuring morality tales. Whereas if you actually dig into it and say, I don't know, I mean, he was still you read Hitch 22, his memoir that came out in 2010, and see some of the stuff he says about Palestine in there, for example, he was still a very mixed bag politically, right up until the bitter end. But
he was a product of his time. I mean, he was a product of the 20th century. I actually have a quick clip, if you don't mind.
Please.
Me loading it up. So this was at a like an event for the nation. I'm having to try to wrangle it really quick. This was at an event for the nation, and it's 50 years since the end of World War II.
I know
And
what you're going to play. I like it. Let's do it.
I fucking love this. Like, I recommend everybody go watch this because he waxes all poetic, like about his father being in the Navy, taking down a German, like, ship or whatever, which is a hard day's work or whatever that I could never claim or something like that. And then
Yeah.
joking about how the rest of the war, his dad is delivering guns to the Soviet Union. So old daddy became a gun runner for Stalin. There's all this like amazing stuff that he talks about. And then this kind of even includes a little bit of what we were talking about on Twitter about like how seriously should we take January 6th? How seriously should we take Trump and the far right and all this kind of shit? But he specifically mentions anti-fascism. And, and as you mentioned in your book in Canceling Comedians, like you're one of the few, right, who heard that word before 2020 or 2018 or before Trump, but let's just hear a little bit.
Yeah, let's do it.
Cool.
And that's the ideology of objectivity right there for you. So you need the corrective. And we may need it sooner than we think. The stench in 1945 all across Europe, including the town in which I was brought up, Portsmouth, where I could still see it when I was a small boy, the bomb sites and the rubble and the wreckage, but not all of it, because the stench of 1945 all the way across Europe was the stench of disinfectant being sprayed on rubble. You can't dig anymore. There's no point in it. There's only putrefaction and misery underneath. You can't keep digging if you don't disinfect it. And I would say that the stench of disinfectant sprayed on rubble, the rubble is on top of human remains, is the particular tang, stench, odor of fascism. And we used to, in our movement, in our pages and so on, say we'd give the title anti-fascist to the older comrades, to those who'd suffered and been through it and so on. We never thought, I think, many of us, that how soon we might have to earn this great title of honor for ourselves. Though we were warned. You remember the end of Bertolt Brecht's play Arturo Ui, when the leader steps forward to the front of the stage after Hitler's body has turned to carrion, after all, at last, and says, well, this is the thing that nearly had us mastered, but do not think that that is all, you men, for though we rose up and we beat the bastard, the bitch that bore him is on heat again. And I think the stench of rubble and carrion and disinfectant from Oklahoma is a kind of a warning. And this time it's not digging out at the end, it's digging out at the beginning of a battle with reaction, with the Galenites and their descendants, and with those who wanted to turn yours, my democratic republic into an empire. KKK is Kinder, Kircher, and Kusha too. These rebels, as they call themselves, these anti-establishment figures, are nothing of the kind. They say they're against the government, they're lone pioneers and frontiersmen. Who are they? Where does Gordon Liddy come from if he isn't a pimp of the state? An incubus from the national security system. Where does Oliver North come from? Who dares say this man is a rebel or a dissident? He's an outgrowth of the government.
So,
yeah, that's very good stuff.
Yeah, I goofed up the video there. I'm still learning this Restream platform, but he starts by mentioning, like, we used to, as the term of endearment, call them, these old timers, anti-fascists. Little did we know we'd have to earn the title ourselves. Prescient shit, Of course, he forgot all the fuck about that during the Bush administration.
I will. Well, I will also say this though, that I think, like, yeah, and actually, so I'm resisting the temptation to start taking us to a deep dive on the new atheism stuff. Although that would be like an interesting discussion, but that'd be like an hour. So
of course, yeah, I could do that.
Because that's actually the stuff I've been writing, like, just now in the book is about that. But
cool.
and I'm very, it's something. Yeah, I mean, I'm an atheist. I'm also a philosophy nerd, so I like to think about stuff like that. Yeah. I do think that, like, his version of anti-theism, gets some important stuff wrong, and that, like, I think that my I think there are lots of lazy criticisms that, of his stuff on that, I'm still defending him against, but also like my ultimate position is like, the, what it says in the Cosmopolitan Socialism chapter of Against the Web, that that I think that it's that we it's a mistake to think that to like essentialize like giant cultural traditions and think that there's like a real version of it that we could either celebrate or demonize, right? And ultimately what we want is to the sort of values that drive a left project are things that you can find people express in just about any tradition, because in any society there are going to be at least some people who find their way to them. And so like obviously like I guess the TLDR is like, I'm an atheist, but all I need from anybody politically is just that they not try to impose their religious views on me. If
Absolutely.
If that's the case, we're 5 by 5. We can work together on everything else. But I was just going to.
Really quick. Michael opened my mind to that big time, like the importance of liberation theology and just the recognition of the history of every religion, how so different they are across countries and geography and time and place, material conditions, all of that stuff. Where it's just like, oh, this is the adult nuanced view of this type of thing.
No, seconded. So I think. I think like, so I guess thinking about that clip that you just played and what you said about 6, like I think about like playing this game that is ultimately probably a silly game to play because there's just no way to know, but like I can't help myself of like saying, okay, if Christopher Hitchens had beaten cancer in 2011 and he'd lived for like another 10 or 15 years, where would he have landed in everything that's happened since then? Yeah. And so like you think like, okay, 2016, would he have supported Bernie? I don't know, maybe not. I think he definitely, when Hillary Clinton said on the debate stage that Henry Kissinger was a trusted friend and advisor, I certainly think he would have had a reaction to that. But
that was a great Bernie take too. I know people give him shit for his foreign policy, but that was the right take in the moment,
No, that was one of the outstanding moments from Bernie on foreign policy in 2016.
We will not be celebrating Henry Kissinger. Not here, not me. Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, exactly. So like, I think that despite the fact that Hitchens' bad foreign policy views, would have led him to have some big disagreements with Bernie. I think it's possible that he would support him. I don't know, maybe not. And how he would have reacted in general to sort of economic left issues coming back into the sort of fore of mainstream discussion between Occupy Wall Street, which happened while he was like very late stage, dealing with cancer and the 2 Bernie campaigns and the Rise DSA. No clue. I think, it's possible, how he would have reacted to 2016 general election. I don't know, because he was very much on record as hating both Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. But I think that like there's definitely a version like, obviously my best case, like what I would like to think is that he would have like found his way back to like socialism and all that stuff, but like, maybe that's wishful thinking. I think that I've got to say there is a all too easily imaginable version of Hitchens who basically reacted to the rise of Trump by becoming an insufferable resistance lib.
Oh no!
I think that that's like a very real possibility.
Oh no!
Because if you think about like the way that like he reacted to 9/11, the way that those sorts of like big flashy events, could move him, and he'd have like strong visceral reactions.
Mm-hmm.
I can imagine a version of Hitchens who had that with Trump, with January
Yeah.
6th, you know,
Maybe,
that,
or maybe also, I try to think at night over my scotch. I put myself in the mind of Vladimir Putin, right, or something like that.
yeah, totally, right.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
can absolutely imagine that, which obviously, as somebody who likes Hitchens despite everything, makes me very
yeah,
sad. But I mean, it's a real possibility.
yeah. It reminds me of the Doug Stanhope joke. He goes, "How do you know if Jimi Hendrix didn't die, he wouldn't be doing halftime shows with Elton John? Rocket Man, wow, wow, wow. It's like that kind of thing.
No,
Yeah, you don't. We saw how far he went in those years of his life, but yeah, I hear you on that.
I like Stanhope. I'd forgotten about that joke, which is although I've had I've had like very similar thoughts. Like I'm a huge Led Zeppelin fan, but like I think
Yeah.
okay, if John Bonham had lived for as long as Keith Richards, and like a big part of the magic of Zeppelin is that like there's the entire studio discography. You can listen to it in an afternoon and have some time left over, and it's all like really good, except maybe parts of it through the outdoor, whatever. But like it's all really good. But like if we were like having arguments like in like the 80s and 90s, like I don't know, I think they were still pretty good until Zeppelin 13. I think that's what it that's when it like really went off the rails. Yeah,
Yeah.
they definitely have lost some of that magic.